Hey there. Tonight, we're traveling back 2,347 years to 326 BCE. You are standing on the muddy banks of a river you've never seen before. Your feet are wrapped in rotting leather. Your shield arm hasn't stopped aching in 3 years. You've marched 11,000 miles from home, through deserts that cooked men alive, over mountains where the air was too thin to breathe, across plains so vast you forgot what your mother's face looked like. You are not a general. You are not a hero whose name will echo through history. You are a foot soldier in Alexander's army, and you're about to do something that will shock the ancient world. You're going to say no to a living god. This is the story of the Hyphasis River, the water that broke the greatest military machine the world had ever seen. Not through battle, not through strategy, but through sheer bone-deep exhaustion. So dim the lights, get comfortable. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Because tonight, you're not just learning history, you're living it. You're about to experience the moment when ordinary men looked at their king and decided that glory wasn't worth dying for. Let's begin. You wake to the sound of rain hammering against leather. Not the gentle rain of home, but the monsoon, a wall of water that hasn't stopped falling for 16 days. Your tent leaks in 4 places. You've given up moving your bedroll. Everything is wet now. Your clothes, your skin, the bread ration that's gone green with mold. Your name is Kletos. Not Kletos the Black, Alexander's cavalry commander who was murdered 2 years ago in a drunken rage. Just Kletos, a foot soldier from Pella. 26 years old. You left home when you were 23, thinking you'd see the world and come back rich. You've seen the world all right. Persia, Bactria, the Hindu Kush, the Gedrosian desert where 1/3 of the army died of thirst. And now this. India. The edge of the earth. The place where the maps run out. Outside, someone is coughing. That wet, rattling cough that means fever. That means death in 3 days if you're unlucky. 5 if you're lucky. 12 men in your unit have died since you crossed into India. Not in battle, from disease. From infected wounds that won't heal in this humidity. From snake bites. From things growing in the water you drink. You pull on your boots, still wet from yesterday, and crawl out into the grey dawn. The camp stretches for miles. 30,000 men, or what's left of them. The fire pit is more mud than fire. Philin, your tent mate, is there already. He's stirring something in a bronze pot that might be barley porridge or might be mushroom soup. Hard to tell when everything tastes like mildew. Philin lost 3 toes to frostbite crossing the Hindu Kush. He walks with a limp now. Everyone walks with a limp now. They're saying we march at noon, Philin says without looking up. His voice is flat. Nobody gets excited about marching anymore. You've marched so far that distance has lost meaning. Another 100 miles? Another 1,000? What difference does it make when you're already so far from home that you can't remember what home smells like? Where to? You ask, though you know the answer. The answer is always the same. East. Always east. Chasing the sunrise. Chasing Alexander's dream of reaching the edge of the world. Never mind that you've already crossed what everyone thought was the edge. Never mind that the locals keep telling you there's nothing ahead but more kingdoms, more armies, more rivers, more rain. Philin shrugs. The officers aren't talking. That's new. Usually the officers can't shut up about the next great victory, the next pile of loot to divide, the next city to burn. When officers stop talking, it means even they don't believe in whatever comes next. You eat your portion, lukewarm, gritty, vaguely salty. It sits heavy in your stomach, alongside the constant low-grade nausea you've had since drinking from that stream 3 weeks ago. Around you, the camp slowly comes alive. Men coughing, vomiting, men vomiting. Men checking weapons they're too tired to use properly. The rain continues its monotonous drumming. By mid-morning, the rumour is everywhere. There's another river ahead. Not just any river, a big one. Bigger than the Indus you crossed 3 months ago, which was already wider than any river in Greece. This one, the locals call it the Hyphasis, or maybe the Bees. Names don't matter. What matters is that Alexander wants to cross it. You're in your units section, checking your gear. Your shield has a crack in it from that skirmish with the Malians. You should replace it, but the supply wagons are empty. Everything is empty now. The baggage train that once stretched for miles, laden with Persian gold, captured treasure, enough grain to feed an army, has been reduced to a few carts of rotten supplies. You sold your spare sandals for a pouch of figs last week. You ate the figs in one sitting and felt sick for 2 days. Menon, your unit commander, comes by. He's 40, which makes him ancient by army standards. Most men your age are dead. Menon survived because he's cautious, because he doesn't charge first, because when Alexander screams, "Forward!" Menon counts to 3 before moving. It's kept him alive through 100 battles. It's made him no friends among the glory seekers. "Gather round," Menon says. His voice is a low rasp from screaming orders for too many years. Your unit, 8 men, once 16, forms a loose circle. "We're moving to the river." Alexander wants to scout the far side. There's an army waiting. Indian king named Porus. Someone laughs. It's not a happy sound. The march to the river takes 4 hours. 4 hours that should take 1, but mud sucks at your feet with every step. The column moves like a wounded snake, slow, halting, occasionally stopping completely when someone collapses. Nobody helps them up anymore. There are no spare hands, no spare strength. If you go down, you stay down. You pass the elephant corps, or what's left of it. Alexander captured 200 war elephants after defeating King Porus of Paurava last year. Now there are maybe 80. The rest died from disease, exhaustion, or wounds that festered in this wet heat. The surviving elephants look as tired as the men. Their mahouts, Indian prisoners forced into service, look even worse. One elephant has a suppurating wound on its leg. You can smell it from 20 feet away. Sweet. Rotten. The mahout keeps it moving through whispered words and gentle taps. Tomorrow, or the next day, that elephant will fall. They'll butcher it for meat. You'll eat elephant stew and not care that you're consuming something that saved your life in battle. The rain softens to drizzle, but never stops. Your feet make sounds. Your armor feels like it weighs 100 pounds. Every step is negotiation between your exhausted body and your stubborn will. Behind you, someone starts singing. An old marching song from the early campaigns. Nobody joins in. The singer's voice falters and stops. The only sound is feet in mud. Rain on bronze. Always coughing. You hear the river before you see it. A low roar that grows louder with each step. Then the jungle opens up and there it is. The Hyphasis. It's massive. Brown with silt, churning with current. Wider than any river has a right to be. On the far bank, so distant you can barely make out details, there's movement. Lots of movement. That's the Indian army. Philon mutters beside you. Even from here you can see them. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. They're setting up camp, raising standards, forming battle lines. There are more elephants over there. More men. Fresh men who haven't marched 11,000 miles. Men who are fighting for their homes, not for some Macedonian king's insane dream. Alexander is already at the riverbank. You can see him even from the back of the column. That purple cloak, that distinctive helmet. He's talking with his generals, pointing across the water, probably planning how to get 30,000 exhausted men across a flooded river into the face of a massive enemy army. You find a spot to sit. The ground is wet, but you're already soaked, so what does it matter? Around you, the army collapses. Not in military formations, just collapses. Men sitting in mud, lying in mud, staring at the river with dead eyes. You've crossed so many rivers, the Danube, the Euphrates, the Indus. Rivers that seemed impossible became yesterday's problems. But looking at this one, something is different. Something is broken. Night falls and the camp is silent. Normally, after arriving at a new position, there would be noise. Soldiers gambling, singing, arguing, trading stories. Tonight, nothing. Just the rain and the river's roar and the occasional scream from the medical tent where the surgeons work. You're trying to sleep, but your mind won't stop. You keep calculating. 3 years on campaign. Maybe 2,000 miles the first year, pushing through Asia Minor and down into Egypt. Another 4,000 fighting through Persia, the mountains, the desert, the endless plateaus. Then India. Another 5,000 miles of India that never ends. 11,000 miles. That's how far you are from your mother's house in Pella. Phylan is talking in his sleep, muttering names of men who died. He does this every night. You used to try to wake him. Now you just wait for him to stop. Everyone talks in their sleep now. Everyone has ghosts. Outside you hear shouting. Officers calling for unit commanders. That means a briefing. That means Alexander has made his decision. You know what it will be. It's always the same decision. Forward. Always forward. Cross the river. Fight the Indians. Win another impossible victory. Add it to the list. Except, this time, listening to that shouting in the rain, you feel something you've never felt before. Not fear exactly. Worse than fear. Emptiness. You've followed Alexander across the known world. You've watched him do impossible things. Lead cavalry charges that shouldn't work. Storm fortresses that shouldn't fall. Survive wounds that should kill. He's not human. He's something else. But you're very human. And you're very tired. Morning brings news. Alexander is calling an assembly. The whole army. That's unusual. Usually orders flow down through commanders, but Alexander wants to speak to everyone. That means something is wrong, or something is about to go very wrong. You drag yourself to the assembly ground, just a cleared area of mud near the river. The entire army gathers, 30,000 men. Except it doesn't look like 30,000. It looks like half that, because men stand hunched, bent, taking up less space than they should. This isn't an army. It's a migration of ghosts. Alexander stands on a platform. Even from a distance, you can see he's different from his men. Clean armor, bright purple cloak. Energy. That unnatural energy he always has, like he draws strength from some divine source the rest of you can't access. His wounds, and he has many, you've seen them, never seem to slow him down. An arrow through the lung in the Malian city? He was leading cavalry charges 2 weeks later. The rest of you would have died. He begins to speak. His voice carries across the assembly. You've heard this speech before. Different words, Same message. Glory, honor, conquest. The edge of the world is just ahead. One more river, one more victory. Your names will echo through eternity. You'll return home as heroes, rich beyond measure. Just this one last push. Around you, nobody reacts. Normally, Alexander's speeches electrify the troops. Men cheer, bang spears on shields, roar approval. Today, silence. Rain on bronze, feet in mud. Nothing else. Alexander finishes his speech. The silence that follows is deafening. He expects cheering, he expects enthusiasm. What he gets is mud and rain, and the sound of men breathing. "We cross tomorrow!" Alexander shouts. His voice has an edge now, frustration. He's not used to silence. "At dawn! Full battle order. We'll sweep the Indians aside like we've swept aside every enemy from Greece to the edge of the world." Still nothing. You look around. Men are looking at each other, not the way soldiers look at each other before battle, checking who's afraid, who's brave, building collective courage. Different. They're looking at each other the way conspirators look, the way men look when they're about to do something that can't be undone. Beside you, Philon, "I'm not crossing that river." The words hang in the air. Mutiny. That's mutiny. Saying no to Alexander is unthinkable. He's the king. He's the living embodiment of Achilles. He's conquered an empire. You don't say no to Alexander. But Philon said it. And looking around, you see the same thought in every pair of eyes. Not crossing. Done. Finished. This is where it ends. Alexander dismisses the assembly. Nobody moves. Usually men would disperse immediately, rushing to prepare equipment, check weapons, gossip about the coming battle. Today they stand there, a silent wall of refusal. Alexander stares at his army. For the first time in your life you see him look uncertain, just for a moment. Then he turns and stalks away, purple cloak swirling. You return to your tent. Around the camp, men are gathering in small groups, talking quietly. You've been in this army long enough to know what this is. This is mutiny forming. Not the violent kind where soldiers kill their officers. The quiet kind. The kind where men simply stop obeying. Menon appears at your tent. His face is grey. "Alexander's Chowgen the senior commanders," he says. He uses the Persian word. You've all started mixing languages after years among foreigners. He's going to order us to make you cross, whip you if necessary, execute the ringleaders. "Who are the ringleaders?" Philon asks. Menon laughs. It's bitter. Everyone. That's the problem. Can't execute 30,000 men. You ask the question that matters. Will you order us to cross? Menon looks at you for a long moment. He's 40 years old. He's survived 20 years in the Macedonian army through caution and intelligence. He's seen kings come and go. He's watched Philip build an empire and watched Alexander expand it beyond reason. He knows when to push and when to step back. "No," he finally says. "I won't order you to cross, and I won't cross either. That's it then. Your unit commander has joined the mutiny. How many others? How many of the 40 unit commanders have looked at their men and decided that loyalty has limits? That glory isn't worth marching men to death? Alexander will kill you, you say. Menon shrugs. Maybe. Or maybe he'll realize he can't kill everyone. Either way, I've crossed enough rivers. News spreads like fire through dry grass. Except there's nothing dry here. Still, news travels. Menon has refused. So has Crateros, commander of the infantry corps. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's closest companions. Perdiccas. Seleucus. The names pile up. Senior commanders. The men Alexander trusts with his life. They're all saying the same thing. No further. By evening, the officers' quarter is in chaos. You can hear shouting from a quarter mile away. Alexander is raging. But here's the thing about rage. It only works if there's fear behind it. And his commanders aren't afraid anymore. They're too tired to be afraid. Fear requires energy. You sit with your unit and eat the evening ration. It's the same garbage you've eaten for months. Barley porridge cut with whatever weeds the cooks can find that won't immediately kill you. But tonight it tastes different. Tonight you're eating it as a free man. Not a man who's marching to his death tomorrow. Just a man sitting in the rain eating bad porridge. What happens now? Philon asks. Nobody knows. This has never happened before. Alexander has never been told no. From Greece to India, every city that resisted him was destroyed. Every army that opposed him was annihilated. Every obstacle was overcome. He's never met a problem he couldn't solve with violence or genius, or both. But you can't fight an army that won't fight you. You can't conquer men who just sit down and refuse to move. What's he going to do? Kill everyone? Then he has no army. March alone across the river? Then he's just one man drowning in a foreign land. He'll compromise, Menon says. He's joined you, sitting in the mud like a common soldier. He has to. 3 days pass. 3 days of standoff. Alexander hasn't left his tent. The army hasn't moved. You sit by the river and watch the Indian army on the far shore. They're watching back, both sides just staring at each other across impossible water, neither willing to cross. You've used this time to rest. Actual rest, not the half-sleep of forced marches. Your body is remembering what it feels like to not constantly hurt. The cough that's been plaguing you for 2 months has lessened. The rash on your legs from constant wet leather is starting to heal. You're still exhausted. 3 days can't undo 3 years, but the edge of total collapse has dulled. Philon has been talking about home, not the sad, nostalgic talk of earlier campaigns. Different. Planning. My father has a farm, he says. 20 acres. Olives. He's getting old. He needs help. He says this like it's a real possibility, like going home is something that might actually happen, like this nightmare might end. Other soldiers are doing the same, making plans, talking about families, about trades they left behind. Fishermen, potters, farmers, blacksmiths. They left as soldiers. They forgot they were anything else. But 3 days of sitting still has reminded them. There are other ways to live. You don't have to march until you die. You think about your own family. Your mother, if she's still alive. Your sister. The house in Pella, with its tiny courtyard. And the olive tree that never produced good fruit. It seems unreal, like something from someone else's life. But maybe it's not. On the 4th day, Alexander emerges. The whole camp knows immediately. You can feel it. That energy he brings. Even now, even refusing him, you feel it. He walks through the camp, not with his generals, not with guards, alone, just walking among the men. You're at your tent when he passes, 20 feet away, close enough to see his face clearly. He looks tired. That's new. You've never seen Alexander look tired before. Wounded, yes. Covered in blood, yes. But tired? Never. Now, his eyes have that same exhaustion everyone else carries. He's 32 years old, and he looks 50. He stops at a group of veterans, old men in their 30s. They don't stand at attention. They just sit there, looking at him. He talks to them. You can't hear the words, but you see the dynamic. He's not ordering. He's asking. Maybe even begging. The veterans shake their heads. Alexander moves on. He does this for hours, moving from group to group, talking to men who used to worship him. They don't worship him now. They respect him. That hasn't died. You can't watch a man take an arrow through the chest and keep fighting without respecting him. But respect isn't obedience. Not anymore. By afternoon, Alexander returns to his tent. He's been rejected by his own army. The greatest military commander in history has been defeated without a battle being fought. Not by the Persians, not by the Indians, by exhaustion, by rain, by a river that's one river too many. That night, Crateros comes to your section. He's one of Alexander's 7 bodyguards, the elite companions who've been with him since the beginning. Seeing him here, among common soldiers, is like seeing a god descend from Olympus. Except he doesn't look like a god. He looks like you. Tired. Wet. Done. The king wants to address the commanders again, Crateros says. He's going to announce his decision. The way he says it, you know. Alexander is backing down. The impossible is happening. The next morning, assembly again. This time the energy is different. Anticipation. Not the anticipation of victory, but of release. Like prisoners waiting for their cell doors to open. Alexander stands on his platform. He looks smaller somehow. Or maybe you've grown larger. Maybe saying no makes a man bigger. We're turning back, he says. No preamble, no justification, just those 4 words. We're turning back. The river will remain uncrossed. The Indian kingdoms beyond will remain unconquered. The edge of the world will remain unreached. For the first time in 13 years of campaigning, Alexander is retreating. He tries to frame it differently. We've achieved enough glory, he says. We've conquered more than any army in history. It's time to return home and consolidate our gains. But you hear the truth behind the words. He lost. Not to the Indians, to his own men. Around you, nobody cheers. This isn't victory, but it's not defeat either. It's something else. Survival, maybe. The choice to live rather than die for glory. That's its own kind of victory. The camp explodes. Not with violence, with relief. Men are crying. Grown warriors who've faced death 100 times are weeping openly. Some collapse to their knees. Some embrace. Some just sit down in the mud and laugh. Hysterical, exhausted laughter. You find yourself laughing too, though nothing is funny. It's just the only response your body has to the release of 3 years of accumulated tension. Philon is saying something about his father's farm. He's talking so fast you can barely understand him. Plans, dates, how long it will take to march back, where you'll stop, what route you'll take. He's planning his future like it's a real thing. Like he has one. Do you have a future? The concept seems alien. For 3 years, the future has meant tomorrow's march, next week's battle, next month's river to cross. Now, suddenly, there might be years ahead, decades. You might grow old. You might have children. You might die in bed instead of in mud with a spear in your guts. The possibility is overwhelming. Menon is accepting congratulations from his men like he personally defeated Alexander. Maybe he did, in a way. By refusing to order them forward. By joining the quiet rebellion. You shake his hand. It feels wrong. You've never touched an officer familiarly before. But everything is wrong now. The old rules don't apply. How long to get home, you ask him. Menon calculates. 18 months, maybe 2 years. We'll march back up to Babylon, probably stop there to reorganize. Then through Persia. Then, he waves his hand. Home. However long it takes. 2 years more. Still an eternity. But an eternity with an end. The next week is spent preparing for the march home, except it's not like preparing for a campaign. There's no urgency, no tension. Men work slowly, carefully. They're preserving themselves now. No more pushing until collapse. The march home will be long, but it's a march towards something rather than away. That makes all the difference. Alexander orders altars built along the riverbank, 12 of them, massive things of stone, sacrifices to the gods in thanks for the victories achieved. But everyone knows what they really are. Memorials to the point where Alexander's ambition finally broke. Future travelers will see these altars and know, this is where the great conquest stopped. This is where ordinary men said no to a living God and lived to tell about it. You help with construction. It's strange work, building monuments instead of siege engines, carrying stone instead of weapons. Your muscles ache differently. Good pain instead of bad pain. The kind that comes from work, not from forced marching. Philon has a scheme. He wants to buy a donkey for the march back. Carry supplies, he says. We can sell goods along the way, maybe make some money. You listen to him plan. It's absurd. You're soldiers, not merchants. But then, maybe you're not soldiers anymore. Maybe you're just men trying to get home. The Indians on the far shore are still watching. Their army hasn't moved. Do they know what happened? Can they see that the Macedonians turned back not from fear, but from exhaustion? Does it matter? They won by doing nothing. That's a victory too. The march begins on a morning that's only lightly drizzling. You break camp and turn west, away from the river, away from India, toward home. It's a strange sensation, walking away from conquest. Every step is one step closer to home, instead of one step further. The army moves differently now. Still slow, you're all still exhausted. But the quality of slowness has changed. Before, it was the slowness of men on their last legs. Now, it's the slowness of men pacing themselves for a long journey. Sustainable slowness. The kind that gets you home. You pass through territories you conquered a year ago. Villages that paid tribute. Cities that surrendered. The locals watch you pass with calculating eyes. They can see you're weakened. Some might be thinking about rebellion. But that's tomorrow's problem, not yours. Not anymore. Let Alexander figure it out. You're going home. Philon did buy a donkey, a scraggly thing that's probably sick, but it carries your packs. You walk beside it, and somehow its presence makes everything feel more real. You're a traveler now, not a soldier. Even with your sword still at your hip and your shield on your back, you're a traveler. Going somewhere instead of nowhere. The rain follows you. Of course it does. The monsoon doesn't stop just because you've decided to leave. But water that felt like punishment on the march east feels almost cleansing on the march west. Like it's washing off 3 years of dust and blood and grief. Maybe that's wishful thinking. Probably is. But you think it anyway. 2 months into the march home, you reach the Indus River. You remember crossing it on the way east. That seems like a lifetime ago. Different men crossed that river. Hopeful men. Men who still believed in glory. The men crossing it now are different. Harder, emptier, but also, strangely, freer. The crossing takes 3 days. The river is still in flood, but Alexander has engineers. Always engineers. They build boat bridges. Slow work. Dangerous work. 2 men drown when a cable snaps. You watch them swept away by the current and feel nothing. That's what 3 years of death does. Makes you numb. 2 more names you'll forget by tomorrow. On the western bank, the army reorganizes. Some units are being disbanded. There aren't enough men left to maintain full strength. Your unit, once 16 men, now 6, is merged with another depleted unit. New faces, new names to learn. Except you don't bother learning them. What's the point? You'll just watch them die too. But here's the strange thing. You don't watch them die. Days pass, weeks. Nobody dies. Disease is still there, but less. The constant attrition of the Eastern Campaign has slowed. Maybe the climate is better here. Maybe you're out of the worst of the monsoon. Or maybe you're just not being pushed to absolute breaking anymore. Whatever the reason, men are surviving. You start to think the unthinkable. Maybe you'll survive too. Maybe you'll actually make it home. The odds seem better than they did. Not good, but better. The march through Godrosia, the desert that nearly killed you on the way east, is somehow worse going back. Because now you know what's coming. The heat, the thirst, the sand that gets into everything. Alexander chooses to go through it again because actually nobody knows why. Some say he's trying to recreate what Cyrus failed to do. Some say he's punishing the army for refusing him. You think he's just stubborn. The desert swallows you. The first week, water is rationed. 1 cup per man per day. It's not enough. The second week, half a cup. Men start dying again. Not from disease this time. From thirst. From heat. From madness that comes when your brain cooks inside your skull. You develop a technique. Wet a rag with your water ration. Put it on your head during the hottest part of the day. Let the water evaporate slowly, cooling you. It wastes some water, but keeps you sane. Philon copies you. Others copy you. The whole army starts marching with wet rags on their heads. Small victory against the desert. Nights are worse than days. Days you can see death coming. Nights, it sneaks up. Men lie down to sleep and don't wake up. Their hearts just stop. You start sleeping lightly, waking every few hours to make sure you're still alive. Sounds ridiculous, but in the desert, death is so casual that you can't trust it not to take you while you're unconscious. The donkey dies after 2 weeks. It just stops walking one morning and won't move. You eat it. Donkey meat is terrible, but it's protein. You feel guilty for about an hour, then you forget about it. Guilt is another luxury you can't afford. After 20 days, you emerge from the desert. 20 days that killed a quarter of the army. Not in battle, not gloriously, just killed. Thirst, heat, exhaustion. The list of causes doesn't matter when you're dead. The first river you reach, a muddy trickle called the Parali, becomes a madhouse. Men throw themselves into it, drink until they vomit, drink more. Some drink so much they die from it. Their stomachs rupture, but most survive. You survive. You kneel in the shallow water and drink and drink and drink until your belly is a tight drum. Then you lie back in the water and let it cover you. Baptism by survival. You've lost weight you couldn't afford to lose. When you strip off your armor, you can count every rib. Your legs are stick thin. Your arms are wasted. You look like a corpse that's still walking. But you're walking. That's what matters. Alexander's army, the greatest military force in history, now looks like a refugee column, ragged, broken, barely armed. If the Persians wanted to rebel, now would be the time. But they don't. They watch the army limp through their territories with something like pity. Philon has stopped talking about his father's farm. The desert took that from him, along with everything else. He walks in silence now. Everyone walks in silence. There's nothing left to say. You just walk. West. Always west. Toward home. The concept is almost abstract now. Home might not exist. You might just walk forever, getting older and thinner, until you're a skeleton walking through dust. But you keep walking anyway. Because the alternative is stopping. And if you stop, you die. Babylon. After 16 months of marching, you reach Babylon. It's huge. Massive walls that touch the sky. Gardens that drip with green. Water everywhere. Clean water. Food. Actual food. Not mouldy barley and donkey meat. Dates. Bread. Lamb. The army stops here to rest, to reorganize, to pretend to be human again. You're quartered in a building that might have been a barracks or might be a warehouse. Doesn't matter. It has a roof. It has walls that block the wind. It has a real floor instead of mud. You lie on that floor the first night and almost cry. A floor. Solid. Dry. This is luxury beyond imagining. The city is full of contradictions. Macedonian soldiers drinking in taverns. Persian nobles in silk robes. Babylonian priests chanting in ancient tongues. Captured Indians working as servants. The whole empire mashed together. It works, somehow. Alexander's empire, built on violence and genius, and the exhaustion of men like you. You get paid. Actual silver. 3 years of back wages all at once. It's more money than you've ever seen. You should feel rich. Instead, you feel nothing. What good is money? You can't buy back the years. Can't buy back the friends who died. Can't buy back the man you were before you left Pella. But you take the silver anyway. Tie it in a pouch. Hide it in your pack. Because silver is better than nothing. And who knows, maybe when you get home, if you get home, it will matter. Maybe you'll remember how to care about money. How to care about anything. You've been in Babylon for 3 months when the news comes. Alexander is dead. Fever. Sickness. The details are confused, but the result is clear. The king is dead at 32. The man who conquered the world died in bed, killed by something so small you can't even see it. Bacteria. Virus. Infection. Whatever it is, it defeated him when no army could. The city erupts in chaos. Not grief. Nobody has the energy for grief. Chaos. Political chaos. The generals immediately start fighting over the empire. Perdiccas, Ptolemy, Seleucus Antipater. They're carving up Alexander's legacy before his body is cold. The empire that took 13 years to build will tear itself apart in months. But you don't care about empire. You care about this. Will you be paid? Will they let you go home? Or will you be dragged into the wars of succession that are obviously coming? The answer comes quickly. Discharged. All soldiers over age 25 with more than 3 years of service are discharged, given a severance payment, pointed west, go home. You're 26 with nearly 4 years of service. You qualify. You report to the discharge station. A board officer checks your name off a list, hands you another pouch of silver, says, "You're free to go." Just like that. 4 years, 3 continents, 11,000 miles. You're free to go. You walk out of the office, stand in the street. Free. The word doesn't make sense. Free to do what? You've been a soldier for so long, you've forgotten what else you might be. You join a caravan heading west. Mostly merchants, some other discharged soldiers. Safety in numbers, and the roads aren't safe. Bandits, deserters, rebels. The empire is already fraying. The caravan master is a Phoenician named Hanno. He trades in silk and spices. He's been back and forth across the empire a dozen times. When he learns you're from Pella, he asks, "Going home?" "Yes," you say. The first time you've said it out loud. Going home. "Long way," Hanno says. 6 months if we're lucky, year if we're not. 6 months, a year. After 4 years, what difference does it make? You agree to work as a guard. Hanno pays in meals and safe travel. Your silver stays in your pouch. Savings. For what? You don't know. But savings. The caravan moves slowly, 10 miles a day, sometimes 5. The merchants stop at every town to trade. You stand guard while they haggle. It's boring, tedious, the opposite of war. You find you prefer boring. Tedious is good. Tedious doesn't kill you. Philon is in the caravan too. He barely speaks now. The desert broke something in him that Babylon couldn't fix. He does his guard work mechanically, eats mechanically, exists mechanically. You understand. You're not much better. You're both ghosts, going through the motions of being alive while being fundamentally dead inside. But sometimes, when the sun sets and the camp is quiet, you feel something. Not happiness, something less than that. Satisfaction, maybe. You survived. Against impossible odds, you survived. That should mean something. Crossing from Persia into Asia Minor takes months. The roads are better here, more civilized. But civilized means something different now. It means tax collectors, governors, officials who want to see papers. Everyone wants their cut of your silver. You pass through Persepolis, the city Alexander burned 8 years ago. It's being rebuilt. New construction rising from ashes. Persian workers mixing with Greek settlers. The empire is blending, transforming into something new. You helped create this, for whatever that's worth. In a town called Susa, you witness a wedding. Greek soldier marrying a Persian woman. Alexander encouraged these marriages. Blend the peoples, he said. Create a new culture. The soldier looks happy. The woman looks happy. Maybe it worked. Maybe some good came from all the blood. But you can't think that way. Can't let yourself believe it mattered. Because if it mattered, then the men who died mattered. And if they mattered, then their deaths should hurt. And if their deaths hurt, you'll fall apart. So you tell yourself it was meaningless. Just killing. Just walking. Just surviving. Nothing more. Hanno tries to talk to you one evening. You saw things, he says. It's not a question. Bad things. You don't answer. What would you say? Yes, I saw men drown in mud, saw them cook alive in deserts, saw them die of diseases that made them shit blood, saw them get their throats cut, their guts opened, their faces caved in. Saw so much death I can't remember individual deaths anymore. They blur together into one long scream. You'll remember, Hanno says. Eventually. When you're safe, the memories come back. You don't believe him, but he's right. The Aegean coast. You can smell it before you see it. Salt, the smell of home. You're in Lydia now, Western Asia Minor. Greece is just across the water, so close. But crossing the Aegean requires passage money, ships. The caravan stops in Ephesus. Most of the merchants will winter here. Come spring, they'll head back east. The cycle continues. But you're done with cycles. You pay for passage on a merchant vessel. Your silver is significantly lighter now. Months of bribes and expenses have taken their toll. But you have enough. That's what matters. Hanno sees you off. Go home, he says. Forget what you saw. How, you ask. He shrugs. I don't know. I never could, but maybe you can. The ship leaves at dawn. You stand at the rail, watching Asia Minor recede. 4 years. You walked across that continent, fought your way across it, lost yourself across it. Now you're leaving it behind. The land that took your youth, that took your friends, that took everything and gave back nothing but silver and scars. The crossing takes 3 days. 3 days of relatively calm seas. You spend them on deck, watching the water. Not thinking, trying not to think. But memories come anyway. Hanno was right. The Hyphasis River. The moment you decided you wouldn't cross. That was the moment you chose life over glory. That was the moment you became something other than a soldier. What that something is, you still don't know. Philon is on the ship too. He stands at the opposite rail. You don't talk. Haven't really talked since Babylon. Some things don't need words. Pella. Your hometown. You haven't seen it in 4 years. It's exactly the same. The agora where your father traded, the temple where you prayed before leaving, the streets where you played as a child. Exactly the same. But you're not the same. You're a stranger in your own city. Your mother is dead. Died 2 years ago. Your sister tells you this at the door of what used to be your family's house. She's married now, has a child. The house belongs to her husband. There's no room for you. She says this kindly, but firmly. You're not angry. You understand. You're a ghost. Ghosts don't need houses. You rent a room above a tavern. It's small, just a bed and a window. The window looks out on the street. You sit there for hours, watching people. Normal people doing normal things. Shopping, talking, living. They seem alien, like a different species. People who haven't seen what you've seen, haven't done what you've done. You try to find work, but what can you do? You're a soldier. Were a soldier. But Macedonia is at peace now. The wars of succession haven't reached here yet. There's no call for soldiers. Can you build? They ask. Number. Can you farm? Number. What can you do? Kill people. March forever. Survive. None of these are useful peacetime skills. Your silver runs out slowly. You're careful. But there's no income, so it just runs out. You start considering your options. Return to soldiering? One of the successor generals would take you, but the thought of marching again, of crossing more rivers, makes you physically ill. So no, not that, never that. You start drinking. Not heavily, not like some veterans who drown themselves in wine, just enough to sleep, just enough to blur the edges. The tavern below your room becomes your world. You know everyone there. The owner, who lost an arm in Philip's campaigns. The regulars, who tolerate you because you're quiet. The other veterans, who understand without words. One night, a young man approaches you. 17, maybe 18. Eager eyes. He's heard you served with Alexander. He wants stories. Glory stories. Tales of conquest and heroism. You tell him about the Hyphasis River. About refusing to cross, about saying no to the greatest king in history. So you didn't finish the conquest? He asks, disappointed. No, you say. We didn't finish. He loses interest, leaves. He wanted heroes. You're not a hero. You're just a man who survived. But talking about it opens something. Hanno was right. The memories come. Not all at once. In pieces. Dreams. Flashbacks. You'll be walking down a street and suddenly you're back in the Gadrosian desert. You can feel the heat, taste the dust, hear men dying. Then you blink and you're in Pella again. Safe, but not feeling safe. Philon finds you one night. He looks worse than you. Thinner, shakier. I can't do this, he says. What? This. Living. I don't know how to do it anymore. You understand. You're barely doing it yourself. What about your father's farm? You ask. Philon laughs. I went there. Couldn't stay. Too quiet. Too normal. I don't belong there anymore. Where do you belong? He doesn't answer. The next morning, you hear he's joined one of the successor armies. Gone back east. Back to war. It's the only thing he knows. 6 months after returning home, something changes. You're walking through the agora and you see a child drop a toy. An older man picks it up, hands it back, ruffles the child's hair. The child laughs, and you feel something. Not happiness, but not numbness either. Something in between. The beginning of feeling. You start noticing small things. Morning light on the temple columns, the smell of bread from the bakery, a dog sleeping in the sun. These things existed before, but you didn't see them. Now you do. Gradually, slowly, like a frozen lake thawing, painful, but necessary. You find work, simple work, cleaning stables for a merchant who trains horses. It's mindless, it's physical, it's perfect. You muck out stalls, carry water, brush horses, don't think, don't plan, just work. The merchant doesn't ask about your past, doesn't care. You work, he pays, that's enough. The nightmares continue. Maybe they always will. You'll wake up drowning in the Indus, burning in Gadrosia, facing the Hyphasis River and having to choose again. But during the day you function, more or less. Better than before. Not good, but better. You see your sister sometimes. Brief visits. Her child is curious about you. Uncle served with Alexander the Great, your sister tells him. The child asks, "Did you win?" You think about this. Did you win? You survived. Is that winning? You tell the child yes. He seems satisfied. You're not. But maybe satisfaction isn't the point. Maybe survival is enough. A year after returning, you realize you haven't thought about the Hyphasis River in 3 days. 3 whole days. It's the longest you've gone without thinking about it since it happened. The realization makes you think about it again, breaking the streak. But still, 3 days. Progress. You're not the same person who left Pella. That person is dead, died somewhere between the Hindu Kush and the Indus, maybe in the Gadrosian desert, maybe at the Hyphasis River when you learned that saying no was possible. But you're not that person anymore. This new person, the one you're becoming, is harder, sadder, but also, strangely, stronger. Broken things that heal are stronger at the break. The merchant offers you permanent work, better pay, a room in his house instead of above a tavern. You accept. It's not much, but it's something. A future, maybe, or at least a present that doesn't hurt every moment. You still have your sword. It leans in the corner of your new room. You don't practice with it, don't polish it, but you don't sell it either. It's a monument to who you were, to what you survived, to the men who didn't. Men on, the men in your unit whose names you can't quite remember. The thousands who died in rivers and deserts and battles. They need to be remembered. The sword does that. Remembers for you when you can't bear to. Sometimes veterans pass through Pella, heading east to join the succession wars. They try to recruit you. Good pay, they say. Glory, loot, adventure. You smile and decline. They don't understand. They think you're a coward. They don't know. You crossed enough rivers, walked enough miles, survived enough death. You're done. Not because you're afraid, because you chose life over glory. And you'd make that choice again, every time. 2 years home. You've established a routine. Wake before dawn, work with the horses, eat lunch in the agora, work more. Evening walks along the city walls. Simple, quiet, boring, wonderful. You meet a woman, she's a widow. Her husband died in the succession wars. She understands loss. You don't tell her everything. She doesn't need to carry your ghosts. But she knows. She sees it in your eyes. The places you've been, the things you've seen. She doesn't try to fix you. She just accepts you. Broken pieces and all. It's not romance, not like the poets describe. No lightning, no divine intervention. Just 2 damaged people finding comfort in shared damage. You eat meals together, walk together, sit in comfortable silence together. It's enough. Maybe more than enough. One evening, sitting on the city walls watching the sunset, she asks, "Do you regret it? Going with Alexander? You think about this. Really think." "I regret the deaths," you say, "the waste. The men who died for nothing, but going. Number. I don't regret going. It made me who I am. I just wish it hadn't cost so much." She takes your hand, scarred hand, sword hand, killing hand, but also the hand that brushes horses, that builds things, that can be gentle. She holds it. You let her. That night, for the first time since returning, you don't have nightmares. You dream about the future instead of the past. The dream is small, simple. A house, a family, work, life. Not glory, not conquest, just life. You wake up, and for a moment, you're disappointed it was just a dream. Then you realize it doesn't have to be the future you dreamed about. You could build it, piece by piece, day by day. 3 years after the Hyphasis River, you marry the widow. It's a small ceremony. Your sister, a few friends, the merchant and his family. Nothing elaborate. You can't afford elaborate, and neither of you wants it. You've both seen too much spectacle, prefer simplicity. You move into her house. It's small, 2 rooms, a courtyard with a fig tree. The fig tree doesn't produce well, like that olive tree at your mother's house. But you don't care. You tend it anyway. Water it, prune it. Maybe it will fruit. Maybe it won't. The trying is what matters. You still work with horses, still have nightmares, though less frequently. Still carry scars, visible and invisible. But now there's also this, a home, a wife who understands, work that means something, a fig tree that might bear fruit. Small things, but when you've lost everything, small things are huge. One day, a historian comes to Pella. He's writing about Alexander's campaigns. He interviews veterans. He finds you, wants to know about the Hyphasis River. "Why did you refuse?" he asks. "Why did the greatest army in history simply stop?" You try to explain, about exhaustion, about having nothing left, about looking at one more river and realizing that glory isn't worth dying for. But you can't make him understand. He wants heroes, epic reasons, divine intervention. You give him truth. "We were tired. So tired we couldn't take another step. So we didn't." He's disappointed. He thanks you and leaves. His history, when it's written, probably won't include you. We'll tell stories of Alexander's brilliance, the conquered territories, the battles won. But not the truth, that it ended because ordinary men looked at a river and said no. 5 years after the Hyphasis River, your wife gives birth to a son. You name him Philip, after Alexander's father, not after Alexander. You loved Alexander once, followed him across the world, but you don't want your son to be like Alexander. You want him to be like Philip, practical, strong, alive. Holding your son, you realize something. You survived for this, not for glory, not for history, for this moment, this small, screaming, perfect moment. All the miles, all the rivers, all the death, it led here. To a small house in Pella with a fig tree that still won't fruit, and a son who might grow up never knowing war. The succession wars continue. Ptolemy takes Egypt, Seleucus takes the east, Antipater holds Greece. Alexander's empire tears itself apart exactly as you knew it would. Young men march east seeking glory. Some come back. Most don't. Your son will not be one of them. You'll make sure of that. You teach him to tend the horses, to work with his hands, to value life over glory. He's too young to understand now, but someday he will. Someday, when he's old enough to hear it, you'll tell him about the Hyphasis River, about the day 30,000 men looked at glory and chose life instead. He needs to know that's an option, that saying no to power is possible, that survival is its own form of victory. The nightmares are rare now, maybe once a month. You wake up, check that your wife is breathing, that your son is safe, and go back to sleep. The past is still there, always will be, but it doesn't own you anymore. You own it. You survived it. And that makes all the difference. 10 years after the Hyphasis River. You're 37 now. Old by soldier standards, but you're not a soldier. Haven't been for a decade. You're a horse trainer, a father, a husband, a man who once crossed the known world and lived to build a small life in the aftermath. Your son is 5. He asks questions. Father, did you really walk to the edge of the world? Yes. Was it glorious? Number. Was it worth it? You think about this. The honest answer is complicated. It was necessary, you finally say. I had to go. I had to come back. Both were necessary. But I wouldn't do it again. He's satisfied with this. Children accept truth more easily than adults. He runs off to play. You watch him. This child who exists because you survived. Because you looked at a river and said no. Because you chose life. Every moment with him justifies every moment of hell you endured. The fig tree finally fruited. Took 10 years, but it fruited. Small, hard figs that aren't very good. But they're yours. Grown from persistence, from tending, from refusing to give up. Like you. Small, hard, but alive. That's victory. Word comes that Ptolemy died, the last of Alexander's original companions. They're all gone now. The generation that conquered the world has passed. Good riddance, you think, then feel guilty for thinking it. But not very guilty. They led you into hell. You don't owe them reverence. You owe them truth. It was hell. We survived. They're dead. That's all. Your wife asks if you want to tell your son about Alexander, about the campaigns. Someday, you say, when he's old enough to understand that glory and death often travel together. When he can learn from it without being seduced by it. She nods. She trusts you to know when that time is. Maybe it never comes. That's okay too. 15 years after the Hyphasis River. The memories have faded. Not gone. They'll never be gone. But distant. Like stories someone told you about someone else. The pain has dulled to ache. The ache has dulled to occasional twinge. You're not healed. Wounds like yours don't heal. But you've built a life around them. And that life is good. Your son is 10. He knows you were a soldier. He knows you served with Alexander. He doesn't know the details. Not yet. Maybe when he's 15. Maybe 20. Or maybe never. The important thing is he's safe. He's happy. He's alive. That's all you wanted when you refused to cross that river. To survive long enough that survival meant something. The merchant died last year. Left you the business. You own horses now. Train them. Sell them. make good money. You're respectable, a pillar of the community. People ask your advice, treat you with respect. They've forgotten you were once a soldier who refused orders. Or maybe they remember and respect you more because of it. Hard to tell. You stand on the city walls sometimes. Look east, toward the lands you crossed. Persia, India, the rivers and deserts and mountains. They're still there. You're not. That's the difference. You escaped. You survived. You won. Sometimes other veterans find you, grey-bearded men like yourself. They don't talk much, just sit, share wine, understand. The brotherhood of survival, not the brotherhood of glory. Something deeper. Something that doesn't need words. You're all members of the same club. Men who went to the edge of the world and came back. Changed. Damaged. But alive. Your wife is pregnant again. A daughter, the midwife predicts. You're older now. Fathering children at 37 is harder than at 32. But you want this child. Want to fill your house with life. Want to prove that death didn't win. That the Hyphasis River didn't win. That you did. 1 child would be victory. 2 is triumph. At night, when the house is quiet, you sometimes take out your old sword. It's rusted now, neglected. You could restore it, oil it, sharpen it. But you don't. The rust is honest. It shows truth. This weapon is done. Its war is over. Let it decay. Let it return to earth. You'll bury it someday. When you're ready. When you don't need the reminder anymore that you survived. Maybe soon. Maybe never. Either way, it doesn't matter. You're living now. Actually living. That's all that counts. 20 years after the Hyphasis River. You're 42. Your son is 15, the age you were when you first thought about joining the army. He's not interested in soldiering, thank the gods. He wants to be a horse breeder, like his father. Better than his father, he says with teenage confidence. You smile. Let him dream. Dreams are good when they don't involve rivers and death. Your daughter is 8, bright, curious. She asks the questions your son never did, thoughtful. Father, why didn't you cross the river? You've told her the story, the sanitized version. We were tired, you say. Sometimes being tired is reason enough. She accepts this. She's learning that rest is not weakness, that knowing your limits is strength. These are lessons you learned too late. She's learning them young. That's your gift to her. The succession wars finally ended. Alexander's empire is now 3 empires: Ptolemaic Egypt, Seleucid Persia, and Antigonid Macedonia. The borders are settled. The fighting stopped. Young men are farming instead of marching. It took 20 years, but peace came. Was it worth the cost? The thousands dead. The broken men. You don't know. Not your decision to make. You just survived it. Menon died last month. You heard from a traveling merchant. He'd become a mercenary after the discharge, fought in the wars, took an arrow in the chest at some forgotten skirmish. Died at 47. He survived Alexander's campaigns only to die in someone else's war. It makes you angry, then sad, then nothing. You've felt these emotions too many times. They're worn smooth, like river stones. You attend his memorial, a small gathering of veterans. You tell stories, the good ones. Menon's caution that kept him alive through 100 battles, his refusal to cross the hyphasis, his courage to say no. The young don't understand, but the old do. The survivors. You're a shrinking club. In another 20 years you'll all be gone, and the truth will go with you. 30 years after the Hyphasis River, you're 52. Old. Old enough that young people treat you with automatic respect. Old enough that your joints ache on cold mornings. Old enough that you've buried most of your generation. But alive. Still alive. That's the victory. Your son runs the business now. He's better at it than you ever were. Your daughter married a potter. They live nearby. You have 2 grandchildren. The older one is named Klytos after you. The cycle continues. But different. Better. This Klytos will never see war, if you have anything to say about it. You're sitting by the fire one evening when your grandson asks, "Grandfather, what was the bravest thing you ever did?" You think about this, really think. The battles, the marches, surviving the desert, number. "The bravest thing I ever did," you say slowly, "was stop walking." He doesn't understand. He's 6. But he will. Someday, when life asks more of him than he can give, he'll remember. And he'll know. It's okay to say no. It's okay to stop. Survival is its own form of courage. The Hyphasis River still flows, 2,000 miles away, brown with silt, churning with current. The Indian army that waited on the far shore has gone home. Their children have grown. Their grandchildren are being born. The river doesn't remember you. Doesn't remember the 30,000 men who stood on its bank and refused. But you remember. You remember every day of those 3 years. Every mile. Every death. Every choice. And you remember the moment, that singular moment, when you looked at Alexander the Great and said no. When you chose life over glory. When you refused to cross one more river. That moment made you. Broke you and remade you. Cost you everything and gave you everything. Your scars, your family, your life. All of it traces back to that moment on that riverbank when you were 26 years old and too tired to take another step. So you didn't. You stopped. You survived. And 30 years later, sitting by a warm fire with your grandson on your knee, you know. It was worth it. Every painful step of the journey home, every nightmare, every moment of healing, all of it, because it led here, to this moment, this life, this family, this peace. The river flows. You're not on its banks. That's all the victory you need.